Hey, Tatters. Want to come for the recap? No, I know what you actually want is food. Because I got Mr. Tatters here on the diet. He's getting a little chunky. Kitty tail. So it's been about a week since I had the pop. I've had a lot of time to calm down. I've had a lot of time to think about what happened. And I've had a lot of amazing comments from y'all. I think that, like, last I checked, there was over 300 comments on the last video, which is just... I hope it doesn't sound cheesy, but honestly, I cannot believe there's so many of you watching this. It's just... thank you. I think the reason why let me get a prop. I'm pretty sure the reason this blew up was because of when it was charging, all of this wire, and particularly that nice big coil of wire, all this wire and all of the wire going down to that BMS, it all had power on the line. When the BMS decided it needed to disconnect the charging because one of the cells hit its limit, all of that induced power into the line had to go somewhere. If I understand the physics of this right, the magnetic field around the wire collapsed, caused the voltage to spike. The voltage climbed to the point where it went beyond what this could handle, and it shorted. The short was probably the initial pop that caught my attention before the camera was turned on. I ran into here, didn't see anything going wrong, and turned on the camera, went to get my phone, sat down, was going to do the screen recording, and then eventually there was enough heat built up and enough power going through that it started to catastrophically fail. And the rest you saw on camera. Well, as much as you could see it on camera because I had the camera pointed up too high. Takeaway is, it wasn't a problem with the buck converter. I'm going to take this completely on myself. I should have been aware of the fact that the BMS was going to disconnect charge and that power would have to go somewhere. I know I said it in the middle of the last video in frustration that, hey, anyone want any cheap screens? The screens definitely consume a shillings of power. So... I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to use them. I might put them on a single bus off the 12-volt rail, put it on a switch so I can just turn the whole bank on when I need to and turn them off when I'm done. I haven't decided yet. So for the couple of folks who reached out asking me if I was actually serious about selling the screens, not yet. Now, before I get on to building the 12-volt batteries, I want to start another experiment with the balanced trigger voltage. So as you can see, I have discharged the batteries down to 40%. To get it to 40%, I had to run my rack pretty much the entire week. Have I mentioned lately how much I love this battery pack? It is staggering how much power is in this thing. The new experiment is going to be this. All of the batteries have been discharged to the same state of charge. They're all connected to the same bus currently, and they've been allowed to equalize for the last, I think, 2 or 3 days. I haven't actually been discharging from them. All of the trigger voltages have been left the same as before. Now, what I'm really curious about is, I want to see how much this throws the balance off of the cells inside of the packs, not just the parasitic draw. This is one of the comments I saw a lot in the last video where people saying that, oh no, it's not about parasitic draw, it's about throwing the batteries out of balance. So now it's time for me to build the 12-volt batteries, which is the main purpose of this video. There's going to be a little bit of continuity weirdness here because I'm recording this intro way after I recorded the start of the build of the 12-volt battery. I actually started that before the Christmas holidays. So very shortly, you're going to jump to when I started to assemble the 12-volt batteries out of disassembling the old first 48-volt pack. And I got it to a point where I realized I'm about ready to start assembling it, but I don't have fuses or switches. After the festivities of the last video, I don't even want to begin to assemble the pack without first having fuses. I'm going to leave all the BMSs connected and powered up. I'm going to seal the fuses and the switches off of 2 of these packs to use for the 12-volt. And these cells are now going to be left, these 48-volt batteries are going to be left effectively untouched for a good amount of time, possibly 2 or 3 months, because now everything's going to be focused on getting the boat ready, and that means the 12-volt system, because that's what the boat's currently set up for. So I'm going to steal those, and then we're going to magically jump backwards in time, build the batteries, and then jump to the current time where I start connecting the fuses and the switches and getting them ready to take to the boat. Those are all off. Main bus is off. This is off. Oh, I don't even have close to the... You can't see a thing I'm doing. Why am I even recording this then? I just realized to build the 12 volt system and what I'm taking on the boat, I actually need to steal the smart shunt. I need to steal a lot of this stuff. Yeah, I'm gonna have to steal this as well because I don't have any spare cables. I don't... Did I buy enough of these for the 12 volt? Well, okay, that'll be later's problem. 2 fuse and switch assemblies. Harsh shadows. I may end up for the trip home with the 12 volt system not using the Anderson connectors and just hardwiring them in through the fuse directly into the bus bar. I haven't really decided on that yet. This video is going to be about how am I actually going to do this? I just finished assembling all of this and now I'm tearing it apart already. This should all be dead now because this is off and that's off. That's off. Yeah, this should be totally dead now. You know what? Am I going to learn from my mistakes and actually verify that it's off? Where is my... I should learn from my mistakes, but I don't know where my voltmeter is. Something else I need to figure out for the boat trip home is how I'm going to handle solar. Normally I would have made a mount to put a panel on my dinghy davits, but I kind of crushed them, so I don't have that option. Once I leave my marina at the end of March, I'm going to have to pay $6 a day to get shore power. So I kind of have 2 choices. That is run the engine using the inverter, using the alternator through the lead acid through the onboard inverter to charge the 12 volt, pay for shore power to connect to repower, or get solar. Right now, considering this is just a trip home and that's all it needs to do, I'm thinking I might just run the engine. It hasn't been very clear up until now just how much I'm winging things. Turbo GX liberated. I think to be extra safe, I'm going to disconnect all of the Anderson connectors. There you go. The Quattro is unplugged from the wall, so there's no way anything here can energize. I forgot to hit the record button, or rather, I hit the record button but not hard enough and didn't verify it was filming. So I've got the screen, the 2 switches, the 2 fuses, the Turbo GX, the smart shunt, and the 2 bus bars. Let's go build a 12 volt battery. So you know something I haven't done in a while? Played with this thing. Let's tear it apart. I am starting to run out of time between now and when I have to bring the boat home. To bring the boat home, I need to sail from the Chesapeake all the way up to Lake Ontario. I've never done that before, but everything I hear is that it's a fairly healthy journey, especially for somebody in an old, questionable boat with limited sailing experience. So yay. Given this, and given the fact that one of the things I knew when I bought my boat was that the existing lead acids were really old, I knew that before I tried to make the trip home, I would want to have some new 12 volt batteries. And I don't want to spend any money on last century's technology. I don't want to be sailing with AGM or lead acid. Hate below. I want lithium iron phosphate. So, considering I got this old battery that is not going to be used for the engine, it's perfect for ripping apart and turning into a couple of 12 volt, 280 amp hour cells that I want to run in parallel for 560 amp hours of 12 volt use. Now, for the trip home, it's going to run the entire boat. I think it's a hard interface inverter already on the boat that I want to use for the 120 volt. I found a transient slip in the Sassafras River up in the North Chesapeake, but they charge an extra $6 a day for electricity. I really, really want to try to be as self-sufficient as I can. $6 a day adds up pretty quickly. Oh, now, I might hear some of you saying, but you have a diesel. How are you going to start it? Don't you need a starter battery? Yes, I do. Clip. So what you just saw there was, for a very brief moment, it hit I think 280 amps. I'm recording this without having reviewed the footage in a while. Point is, actually no, I think like 220 amps. it wasn't very much. It briefly went over 200 amps and then fell right back down again. The 12 volt JK BMSs that I bought, the 4S BMSs, can do 200 amp. And they'll burst for a short time beyond that. So running two of them in parallel will easily handle the starter load. What actually worries me more is the alternator. When I was digging around in the boat, I noticed that it has a relatively new alternator on it. I don't know the specs whatsoever. I highly doubt that it's a smart inverter that I can command to stop charging the batteries before the batteries disconnect. So my biggest fear is the inverter pumping out a lot of power into the battery, them hitting full, and then it just suddenly disconnecting, causing a massive induction-based voltage spike and burning out the alternator. That is a problem I have to solve still. But in the meantime, for the house loads and for the starter loads, this will do just fine. That was a lot easier than it used to be. Am I getting stronger? Is gravity getting weaker? I don't know. Safety glasses. I haven't shown this, so I wasn't showing some of the boat work on the videos. The toilet, the head on the boat, what it came with when I bought the boat was with your standard, it was a Raritan flushing head that went to what's called a blackwater tank, which is basically just a box of pee and poo that you store your waste in until you get to a place where you can get what's called a pump out. Usually where you buy your fuel, they also do pump outs. What I did on my last trip was, for those who remember the layout of my boat, when you come down the companionway immediately to starboard, there was the nav station where you'd sit and do your charts back in the old days. I decided to remove the blackwater tank for several reasons. One, I wanted the space back. And two, tanks and the hoses that go to them. When you're on a boat, when you're within a certain distance of the shore, you are not allowed. It is strictly illegal to discharge human waste overboard. Once you get out far enough, though, it is legal to discharge overboard. So there's a valve that goes from the toilet, from the head, that either sends it out overboard or sends it into the holding tank. Now, when you send it into the holding tank, you have to have a way of removing it from the holding tank. And there was a hose that went up to a opening, a port on the deck that you would open up and stick a big vacuum into, and it would suck everything out. All of these hoses, the tank itself, they all have the potential to leak. And if anybody has spent any time on a boat, very quickly you get familiar with the smell of the boat. It is very, very difficult to keep a boat smelling sweet when you have a container of human waste on board. And Lord help you if that container lets go when you're not on board and you come back to a very pleasant surprise, especially if it's during the summer where it gets a chance to bake in your bilge. For all of these reasons, and I noticed this on my boat, when I was on my boat, I would only do first use disposal, as some would refer to it, and I would pump out fairly regularly. It would certainly be pumped out as the last thing I did before I left the boat. So my boat was pretty much it had the least amount of waste you could possibly get, and it still smelled. And none of the hoses leaked, the tank wasn't leaking, it's just that smell just permeates everything. So I wanted it gone. So the last time I was down there, I made it go away. So now the head is removed and the holding tank is removed. I haven't removed the hoses yet. I'll do that on my next trip. You might be wondering, am I making a run to the marina every single time I need to use the washroom? No, I got something called an Airhead. Now, you see in this picture, for the first little bit, it was set up in a very interesting place. Now, I'm the only one on my boat, so it worked. But sitting at in your V-berth to do your business was kind of awkward. So I didn't want that to last for very long. I tried to put the Airhead, what's called a desiccating head, into the spot where the old head used to be, but the desiccating head has a big bulbous bottom because that's the container for your waste. These have started getting really popular with boats, and before I chose it, I was very nervous about this idea of basically spending a fair amount of money on what was effectively a glorified bucket. Now, the way it works, you might be sitting thinking to yourself, well, wait a second, if your waste is just in a bucket, doesn't that smell even worse? Well, no, and the reason is twofold. One, as the manual so brilliantly calls it, first use goes into a forward holding tank that you can carry with you to dispose of every other day. The second use, it has you basically put coconut husks or peat or something like that to line the bottom of it. And when you do your business, the second use goes into the back bucket. And there is a hose that comes off of it that I am planning to run up to where I used to get pumped out and put a little mushroom cap on, and it goes through a charcoal filter, and it has a fan blowing on it all the time. And when you close the lid of the composting head, there's a gasket that seals it tight. So what air might be able to get through the gasket, because there's a vent always blowing it up and out, the second use container is always at a lower air pressure than the rest of the cabin. So whatever air leakage there is, it's air being sucked in and then being blown out the top. So the smells just physically can't get out of the bucket into the boat. So it actually ends up smelling a lot better. Now, one of the problems of going to a desiccating head is that because the storage is right there, the head is a lot taller. So in my boat, if you notice in the pictures where the head is, it was sort of set back, and the back comes up, goes over, and comes up. And that's the housetops for the cabin top, the part that steps up over the deck and gives you the little side deck walkway that you walk on to go to the front of the boat. With the new desiccating head, it puts me so far forward that I'm basically sitting like this on the toilet, which is not very convenient. You tuned in to watch a battery be turned from 48 volts to 12 volts, and instead you get a whole conversation about toilets. Welcome to the channel. Picatso, what are you doing over there? Do you guys see that cat? What are you doing over there? You're just staring in the corner. Is there a ghost? Anyway, so one of the other things I've had to do in order to make this work is I've made a white oak panel. So it's very strong, very rot resistant, and it allows when I go back down to the boat next time, I'm going to be able to do the finish shaping and set it in, and that'll let me put the head forward. It'll overhang the sole of the head, the floor of the head, but not too much. It means that if you ever happen to come visit me, I hope you're tall, because it's a bit of a step up into the toilet. Now, all of this discussion about the head, what the hell does it have to do with batteries? Now we finally get to that point. With the Blackwater tank removed under the nav station, I find myself suddenly with a very big box that's empty. Long term, I have different plans for it, but for now, at least for the trip home, do you find it fascinating down there, Picatso? Anyways, that's where I'm going to put these two batteries and the charger and some new bus bars, and that's going to become the heart of the 12-volt section of the boat. I fully expect that I'm going to relocate that into the aft area when I do the main repower and refit, but I might not. I might just leave it there. In any case, one of the problems I have currently with my boat is that the electrical is ancient. The previous owner, very much to his credit, hasn't mucked with it very much. But it's all bundled together. The wires, if they had a color coding, you can't see them anymore. I don't want to try to figure it all out. I want to basically do it over. So my current plan is I'm going to take 8 of these cells to make 2 12-volt batteries, make a little platform that I can strap it together to. It won't be pretty, but it's not going to be permanent either. It's just getting me home. Mount it in there, put the charger in there, put some bus bars in there, and run a 12-volt back to the 12-volt breaker panel, which is where all of the other equipment currently terminates, and then go through and see, do the lights not work because they're burned out, because there's a wiring problem, because they're corroded. The tachometer on my display for the current diesel, it only works now and then. I think the wires there need to be refreshed. The electrical just needs a complete once-over. So when I get down there, what's going to start, well, I guess it technically started when I put the 20 amp circuit in for the air conditioner, but what's going to start the electrical work on the boat is going to be a complete refresh of the 12-volt system. That should allow me to go through one system at a time and get things working and get myself ready to get home. And I'm going to be busy trying to get this done. It is currently December...
It's Friday, December 16th.
So it's currently December 16th. I have until March 31st to be leaving the marina. I don't have all my tools down in Maryland. Oh, I missed one. Oh, I missed 2 of them. So I have to go down there taking as many tools as I can, get as much work done as I can, figure out what work I don't have the right tools for, come back here, do that work, go down there and repeat the process. And I've only got a few kicks at the can because I can only come and go so many times between now and then.
There are 105 days from December 16th, 2022 until March 31st, 2023.
So as of right now, I have 105 days to get everything sorted and get the boat ready to come home. No, okay, that's not actually true. On March 31st, I leave and I have about an 8.5 hour journey, assuming I maintain an average of 5 knots and go in a straight line, neither of which are guaranteed, to go from where I am to where I'm going to be staying in the Sassafras River. I got a lot to do. I have a lot to do. So I have a lot to do, as I just said, but you can tell that this is editing Maddie, not building Maddie. The eagle eye among you will notice that I'm back on my boat. So I was trying to get this video edited before I left to come down to the boat, and it turned out that it was going to be a much longer video than I originally expected, and with everything else going on, especially work completely slamming me, I just didn't have a chance to finish it. Now that I'm on the boat, I finished editing it, but it was over an hour long, a healthy amount over an hour long. So I'm going to try a couple of things. First is, obviously, this is the outro to this video, so I'll do a little intro to the next video and keep on going. I'm going to break this up into 3, maybe 4 parts. I don't think a lot of people can really commit to sitting down for over an hour to watch some crazy lady build batteries. So I'm hoping that by keeping the videos down to the 20 to 30 minute mark-ish might make it more accessible for more people. So I apologize for the sudden abrupt break, and I'm the Digital Mermaid. Yeah, I will see you very shortly. For you, it'll be a couple days before the next video comes up. Cheers!